Welcome to Congress in Context. This is your deep dive into the official filings and legislative records of the 119th Congress. We aim to cut straight to what really matters. We're zeroing in on a period that looked totally silent on the surface. The last full week of September 2025, that's September 22nd through the 26th. If you happen to, check C-SPAN that week, you'd probably think Congress had just packed up and gone home entirely.
Well, yeah, because the House and Senate were mostly in what's called pro forma session. Think of it like this. Congress meets, but only for like a minute or two, just long enough to technically be in session, but without any real debate or voting.
It's really the bare minimum, isn't it? Just to keep the lights metaphorically on.
Exactly.
And then things got even quieter. Speaker Mike Johnson officially designated the next week, starting September 29th, as a district work period.
Right. So our mission today is clear. When the cameras are off, when members head back to their districts, what does the congressional record, the official paperwork, still tell us? We're digging into the context, the priorities, and maybe some surprising details hidden in those formal documents.
And we actually have some really interesting stuff for you. There's a bill that actually got finished, believe it or not. Plus, we get this fascinating peek into congressional priorities through new bills and even, well, how much is being spent on official foreign travel? Okay, let's unpack this crucial week.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The schedule.
Yeah, let's start with the schedule. The House was completely out on Monday, September 22nd. Then they met, super briefly on Tuesday and Friday.
That's right. Tuesday was 9 a.m. to 9:03 a.m. 3 minutes. Friday was 10 a.m. to 10:02 a.m. 2 minutes.
Wow. And the Senate, they took procedural efficiency to a whole new level, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. Get this. Monday, September 22nd. The Senate comes in at 8:30 and 1 second AMP. Senator Roger Marshall, acting as president pro tempore, that's usually just a placeholder role, calls them to order. And they adjourned 29 seconds later, 8:38:30 a.m., a 29-second session.
29 seconds. That's, well, it's efficient, I guess, or maybe absurd, depending how you look at it.
Yeah. It just shows them meeting the absolute minimum technical requirement. Then they adjourned until Thursday.
Met briefly again Thursday, then adjourned until the following Monday, September 29th.
Right. So, given all that quiet, here's where it gets really interesting. Despite the empty chamber, the House actually managed to finalize a piece of legislation during that 3-minute session on Tuesday.
Wait, really? How does that even work?
It means all the real work, the negotiations, the sign-offs, it all happened beforehand. The pro forma session was just the final formal step.
So the clerk reported one enrolled bill signed by the speaker. Now, for you listening, an enrolled bill is kind of the final version, right?
Exactly. It means both the House and Senate have passed the exact same text. It's polished, agreed upon, and ready to head to the president.
So the big question, which bill made it across the finish line?
It was H.R. 2483. This is an act dealing with opioid use disorder, specifically reauthorizing programs for prevention, treatment, and recovery.
Huh. An opioid bill.
Yeah, and the significance here isn't just the topic itself, which is obviously critical. It's the fact that any bill got enrolled right before a recess in this kind of political climate. It shows that, sometimes bipartisan work does happen and things can get done, even when it looks like everything is stalled.
So this opioid crisis bill clears the decks right as everyone's heading out for a district work period. Is that, strategic timing? A needed win they can talk about back home?
I think it's probably a bit of both. Getting an enrolled bill done takes a lot of coordination, often across the aisle. Pushing it through during a slow week lets members point to a concrete achievement when they're back in their districts. It sends a message, that even with budget fights looming, they can agree on some things, like public health.
Okay, so beyond those few minutes on the floor, the real action during a quiet week like this is often hidden in the legislative pipeline, right? Like committee reports and new bills being introduced.
Exactly. That's our window into what's coming up, what the priorities are for the fall session.
So what did we see moving out of committee?
Well, when a committee reports a bill, it means it's passed that first hurdle and could potentially come up for a full vote. We saw quite a bit from Veterans Affairs. Instead of just rattling off numbers, look at the theme. H.R. 1458, modifying independent study criteria. H.R. 659, about who gets priority on the Board of Veterans Appeals. H.R. 2605, dealing with grants for service dogs.
Okay, so a clear focus on veterans issues there.
Definitely. Shows a coordinated push from that committee.
Anything else jump out from the committee reports?
Yeah, the Judiciary Committee advanced H.R. 34922. This one amends Title 18 of the U.S. Code regarding some very sensitive and complex social issues involving Minors, specifically genital and bodily mutilation and chemical castration.
Right. We're just noting here that this topic, which is obviously quite contentious, is moving through the committee process. It's being prepped for potential floor action.
Precisely. And Homeland Security was active, too. They advanced H.R. 4070, which mandates a border threat assessment specifically on this criminal group, Tren de Aragua.
I've heard about them. An international concern.
Yeah. And also a more logistical bill, H.R. 457, about a pilot program for letting Customs and Border Protection officers kennel their service dogs at home.
Okay, so addressing both immediate security threats and operational efficiency at the border.
That's right. Now, shifting to the new bills, introduced, this is like the congressional wish list, right?
Yeah.
And one theme really jumps out, explaining maybe some anxiety heading into October.
Let me guess. The budget. Shut down fears.
Bingo. We saw two different members introduce similar bills aimed at preventing government shutdowns. H.R. 5542 from Representative Barr and H.R. 5552 from Representative Johnson of South Dakota. Both are trying to set up mechanisms for automatic continuous appropriations. Basically, keep the government funded automatically if Congress misses a deadline.
That's telling, isn't it? Multiple members introducing these kinds of structural fixes right now. What does that signal to you?
It signals widespread frustration, I think,
Yeah.
and maybe a real concern that they will miss the deadlines again. It suggests members are looking for ways to break that cycle of budget brinkmanship,
Yeah.
trying to find systemic solutions instead of just waiting for the next crisis.
Makes sense. Beyond the budget fixes, what other new ideas were floated?
A real mix, actually. Consumer issues, like H.R. 5550, pushing for broadband price transparency and prohibiting certain fees.
Okay.
Health policy, too. H.R. 5554 wants Medicare to cover certain fall prevention items for seniors. And H.R. 5571 wants Medicare coverage for PFAS testing.
PFAS, those forever chemicals, that's definitely a rising public health concern.
It is. And internationally, H.R. 5543 calls for a report on threats to the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania.
Continued focus on Eastern Europe.
Right. But then also H.R. 5604, which aims to prohibit using U.S. military members to enforce immigration laws. So debates about the military's role domestically.
And agriculture wasn't left out either. H.R. 5551 proposes a one-time update for base acres for certain farm commodities.
So yeah, a really broad snapshot of policy debates just waiting to happen when they get back.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Even during a pro-forma week, Congress is still doing its oversight job, keeping tabs on the executive branch. We see that in the executive communications listed in the record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's striking is how detailed and, frankly, how local some of this oversight gets. We saw a whole bunch of rules from the Coast Guard referred to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And these weren't like abstract policy papers. They were specific, temporary, and final rules setting up safety zones or regulated navigation areas. Real-time stuff.
You mentioned some examples.
Yeah, the record-less actions related to the Francis Scott Key Bridge recovery in Baltimore, safety zones in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. Things happening right now.
So Congress is constantly getting fed this information, tracking agency actions that affect safety and commerce across the country.
Exactly. And on the foreign policy side, we saw a steady stream of notifications to the Foreign Affairs Committee about arms export controls. Those DDTC
What is
numbers.
DDTC?
Directorate of Defense Trade Controls. It just shows that continuous monitoring of sensitive defense sales and transfers abroad.
Got it. Okay, now for a real deep dive into the numbers. This part's fascinating. While members might be in their districts, their staff are often traveling internationally, gathering information. And the records detail this.
Yeah, the transparency here is pretty remarkable. We get reports on official foreign travel expenditures, and the filings cover the third quarter of 2025, so July and August.
And what did these reports tell us?
Well, they show where Congress is focusing its attention and spending significant money to do it. The overwhelming focus, the Indo-Pacific.
Really? How much are we talking?
We found reports for 4 separate staff delegations during just those 2 months. The total cost across those 4 trips was over $274,000.
Wow, over $250,000. Where were they going?
That's the key insight. There's a real cluster. Multiple delegations visited Japan and the Philippines. One trip there with 9 travelers cost over $124,000 alone.
$124,000 for one staff trip.
Yep. Another delegation of 7 went to Japan and Singapore, costing nearly $90,000. And then smaller delegations went to Japan and the Philippines again, and another one to Sri Lanka.
So you're saying this isn't just random travel. The focus on Japan, the Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, that points to strategic priorities, right?
Absolutely. Think about the context. Supply chains, regional security, alliances in the Pacific. This travel is how staff gather the on-the-ground intelligence needed to inform policy debates and legislation back in D.C. It directly connects to those foreign affairs and defense bills we talked about earlier. This is the unseen groundwork.
So that $274,000 investment, it's essentially funding the information pipeline for Congress on critical Indo-Pacific issues.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so as we wrap up this look at a supposedly quiet week, what should you, the listener, be watching for when Congress properly comes back?
Well, remember that budget anxiety we mentioned? It comes right back into focus. The Senate schedule for Monday, September 29th, their first day back in earnest, has two really key votes scheduled. These are cloture votes, which means votes to end debate and move forward.
What are they voting on?
First, cloture on the nomination of Michael G. Waltz to be the U.S. representative to the UN, a big diplomatic post.
Okay. And the second?
Second, cloture on the motion to even proceed to consider S-2806. That's the Senate's version of the Eliminate Shutdowns Act.
Ah, so that connects directly back to those House bills trying to set up automatic funding. The pressure to deal with potential shutdowns is immediate.
It really is. They're trying to fast-track consideration of these structural fixes.
So the main takeaway for you, the learner, from all this detail?
I think the most important thing is understanding where this information comes from. The 29-second sessions, the enrolled bill number, the committee reports, even those $100,000 plus travel budgets, it all comes directly from the public congressional record. You can find this stuff yourself. The U.S. Government Publishing Office puts it online at www.govinfo.gov. That's GOVINFO.gov.
So the transparency is there if you know where to look.
It is. You can even order print copies, apparently, through the bookstore at bookstore.gpo.gov, or contact them by phone or email listed in the record itself.
Good resources to have. Okay, final thought for our listeners.
Reflect on this. The House heads off for district work period, ostensibly to connect with constituents. But back in D.C., the very first items on the Senate's agenda are confirming a key diplomat and trying to pass a law aimed at fixing Congress's own internal budget process failures. Even in a quiet week, the record shows where the real pressure lies. Maybe the biggest challenge facing Congress isn't just policy disagreements, but managing itself, its time, its deadlines, its procedures. That procedural engine is loud, even when the chamber seems silent.